I'm Reverend Rita Mishu Page, the first Vice President of the Central Branch, and I am also the pastor of New Beginnings Community AME Church. I greet you with lots of love and joy this morning, and I ask that you would please now join me in prayer. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we first give you thanks for waking us up this morning to see a brand new day. We thank you, God, for bringing us together by Zoom for this Delaware State Conference of Branches annual convention. For we are thankful for you bringing us this far by faith and for the legacies of our past presidents, Littleton Mitchell, Jim Sills, Charles Brittingham, Cecil Wilson, Linwood Jackson, Sam Guy, Louise Henry, Keith Booker, and our current president, Richard Smith. Through you, they have provided a solid foundation for us to continue standing for justice and equality for all. We thank you for the current leadership of President Smith, all branch presidents, officers, and members. We have heard committee business and now welcome your presence during this public celebration of the great works of our beloved organization. We pray your blessings upon our program, all program participants, speakers, and tech team. We love you, Lord, and may you receive the glory for all that you allow us to do and accomplish here today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoices rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the faith that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Good morning, NAACP family and friends. Welcome to the 2020 convention of the Delaware NAACP State Conference of Branches. 2020 convention. My name is Flora McKendall, and I'm the second vice president of the Delaware State Conference and a proud member of the Central Delaware branch. It is indeed a privilege and a sincere pleasure to be here with you all today, serving as the mistress of ceremony and sharing this platform with honorary dignitaries, clergy members, partners, and leaders who are unapologetic and uncompromising in their fight to secure equal treatment and justice for all. And over this 111-year span, the NAACP has worked feverishly to bridge the gaps of injustice that have plagued community of color for centuries. It is in that spirit that we gather today to commemorate the innumerable achievements that we've made, recognizing that we still have such a long way to go. The work of the NAACP can oftentimes be lonely, gruesome, and seem near impossible. However, the organization has persevered and remained committed to the cause of securing equality and justice for all. And the Delaware NAACP is no exception because we wholeheartedly subscribe to that same mission. And although we don't know what future lies ahead of us, we do know that when we fight, we win. This was evident when we were able to celebrate the two-time election of the first African-American president of the United States, Barack Obama. This was also evident just 2 weeks ago when our collective work and voter engagement initiatives helped bring about record-breaking turnouts as it relates to Black and Brown voters, and for the first time in history, an African-American woman as Vice President of the United States. So because we know what can be accomplished together, we will keep on fighting and agitating and educating and holding up the bloodstained banner of all those who have gone before us in the name of justice, because we all have a stake in the redemption of the soul of this nation. It's important that past, present, and future stories about the advancement of civil and human rights include everyone's contributions in order for us to truly understand how we all have the ability to lead and put our energy and skills to use by advocating for the underserved, undervalued, and unprotected. This year's convention presents us with a valuable opportunity to shine a light on the achievements of women and their incredible activism as civil rights champions, organizers, and advocates, which is so often overlooked. This year's convention is also an important opportunity for us to reflect on what our next steps should be as we continue the work that has forged the NAACP's record of success. Finally, this year's convention will awaken our conscience and renew our spirits so that we can recommit ourselves to the great work of this organization. I hope that each and every one of you, in a way that's beyond great, will be moved and inspired by today's events. Thank you for your commitment to and leadership of the important work of this organization, and thank you for being here today. May God continue to bless our journey. Now, moving on with today's program, I'd like to reintroduce to you our first keynote speaker, the legendary Dr. Hazel N. Dukes. Dr. Hazel Dukes is president of the NAACP New York State Conference, member of the NAACP National Board of Directors, member of the NAACP Executive Committee, and an active member of various NAACP board subcommittees. She is also the president of Hazel N. Dukes and Associates consultant firm, specializing in the areas of public policy, health, and diversity. Dr. Dukes received a bachelor's degree in business administration from Adelphi University in Garden City, New York, and completed postgraduate work at Queens College. In 1990, she was awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws degrees from the City University of New York Law School at Queens College. In 2009, she was conferred the honorary Doctor of Humane Letters from Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, New York. And in 2012, awarded the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters from Touro College of Osteopathic Medicine in Harlem, New York. Dr. Dukes has many organizational affiliations, including being a member of the National Council of Negro Women Incorporated and a member of the National Black Leadership Commission on AIDS Incorporated. Dr. Dukes is the recipient of numerous awards for her outstanding leadership activities, including the Ellis Island Medal of Honor and the 2007 Network Journal's 25 Most Influential Black Women in Business Award. She is an active member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Northern Manhattan Alumni Chapter and was incorporated in 2007 as a Pi Eta Kappa Fellow. Her biography has been selected for publication in many journals and directories, including but not limited to Fisk University Library, Who's Who Among American Women, and Who's Who Among Black Women. Hazel Dukes is a woman of great strength and courage. Her dedication to human rights and equality is exemplified by her role in linking business, government, and social causes. She is an active and dynamic leader who is known for her unselfish and devoted track record for improving the quality of life in New York State and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me extend a warm welcome to Dr. Hazel N. Dukes. Yes.
Good morning, and thank you so much for that kind introduction. Let me just say thanks to Susan Mitchell and Fran Edwards, the co-host for this planning, to my good friend, longtime colleague, President Richard Smith. I have such fun memories of my interaction with the Delaware NAACP State Conference. As Reverend Page lists the name of the former presidents there, I can remember being the guest speaker during the tenure of Lytton Mitchell. I had never been to Delaware before, and I stayed overnight. I came in on a Friday to be a part on that Saturday. And so I have many fond memories of working with the Delaware State Conference, and let me congratulate all of you for the reactivation of the conference. I have to give a shout out to my colleague, Scott Exdale, who came and worked with you guys and got you back on track. We meet today virtual, and it's a good thing because we are still in the land of the living. We are in unprecedented time, and I'm pleased that to know that the important work of the NAACP continue across America today with many of our faithful foot soldiers during this time. I have been a member of the association for more than 40 years, and I'm not tired yet. Your conference theme today, empowered women, is very timely. I want to take a few moments to call the names of some of the women who empowered me through their education, through their tough and tender love to me during my journey and in the space that I occupy now. I would have never been here if it hadn't been for those women, many who are deceased and their names are not recorded in our history, unfortunate. But I want our young people, I'm pleased to know that your youth council and my colleague is on the program today. The name of Mildred Outlaw, Althea T.L. Simmons, who headed our Washington Bureau. Most of you around just know Hillary Shelton. But Althea T.L. Simmons was a woman of stature who carried on our Washington Bureau. And of course, Sarah Green from Tennessee, Maxine Smith. These are women, of course, you can't, Daisy Bates. And as you know, in the history of the association, we had 3 women to be presidents of the association. Miss Manola Macmillan, who's deceased now, who was the first woman. I was the second woman. And the third woman was Rupert Richardson. Out of the 3 of us, I am the only living one today. We have Daisy Bates, as you know, most of you know the story of Little Rock 9, our kids going through a turbulent time during that period for us. And so we come today, this year we celebrated 100 years of women's suffrage, where our members of the Divine Nine who played a part in this historical victory that we just won 2 weeks ago. This was the NAACP civic engagement. It was the social action initiative of our Divine Nines, who's headed by our women sisters, Soros. It was the lawyer for civil rights that is headed by a woman now. NAACP LDF is headed by a woman now. We have a Black voter headed by women, and we have Tanasha Brown out of Selma, Alabama, a mentor of the late John Lewis. All of these women they were empowered by women before us, and now they are empowered this generation. And so you are on the market and on the space today to encourage the next generation and the now generation to take up the mantle and to go. And when you talk about Africa, I thought of the legendary that says, "For I am my mother's daughter, and the drum of Africa still beat in my heart. They will not let me rest until there is no single Negro boy or girl without a chance to raise or be and aspire for his or her own worth. And that's what this conference is today, to continue in the 111 years tradition of NAACP, to inspire, to educate, to empower, so that in each generation, as Coretta Scott said, each generation must answer its own call and be in its own fight. And so for you in Delaware today, reactivating with your youth councils, with your young adults in the NAACP, our Rosalind Brock, our chair emeritus, started what was known as Leadership 500. We have young people who had graduated from that initiative that we have, till now we have the next gen, a group of young men and women, our brothers, regardless of what the newspapers say, we walk hand in hand with our brothers and beside our brothers, because when we empower our women, we empower a whole family. And so we never leave our brothers out and our sons out. They are part of us. We will not let media divide our communities, because to be whole and to continue in the legacy of this great race and this great association, it's all of us working together. And so as we remember our NAACP history, our Black students, our youth and college chapters, we see that we are on the right track. That those of us who are in our season years, that's been empowered by a generation before us, it is now our time to make sure that we educate and empower the now and the next generation of young people that will be coming to take our places. Our theme and our mission is that we ensure the health and wellness, well-being of all people. That's the mission of the NAACP. That is to educate. When we talk about politics, it's not whether you're a Democrat or Republican or a green tree or libertarian. We're talking about understanding the system. Understand, as our chairman Russell said, we must think about policies that control our life from the time we are born until the time we die. Someone issue a birth certificate when we are born, and someone issue a death certificate when we are deceased. And so therefore, when we use the word political power, it's not about a party, as we like to say, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican or whether you're progressive or whether you're centrist. That is not the education and the empowerment that the NAACP civic engagement is about. The empowerment is to teach us the value of participating in democracy. In democracy, I want to say that word again, because we are non-political. We only make sure that the policy and the interests of all Americans is on the table, put forth. And we can see from COVID-19 that we've been talking about health disparities. It uncovered more African Americans died than any other race of people. Why? Is it because we, as some media would say, are we lazy? No. It is because that we have health disparities. We come with precondition because of the environment, the injustice environment in our communities. And so COVID-19 really put a spotlight on health disparities. We've been talking about them in NAACP. We added health as one of our strategic plans. Our branches across address the issue. But this COVID-19 really set forth, and now the nation, those men and women who will make policy about equity in health as well as in education. Now see where we are today in 2020. That is a disgrace to a wealthy nation such as America, for the number of people died because we didn't have the equipment. We didn't have hospitals and service that could our people could go to. And so now this issue is before us, front and center, as well as education. You know what COVID-19 has done for education here in New York State, where I am. We are back to remote learning. Many of our children, thousands of our children who are in a homeless shelter, do not have devices. And if they have the devices, there's not internet service to have them ready and prepared. And so we're losing another generation because we as Americans has not have policy that is equitable for all the people, regardless to your zip code, regardless to your race, creed, or color. And that's what we mean when we talk about being a part of the democracy, making sure that we participate in every election, not just at the national election, but at local, at school boards, because this is where decisions are made about our lives, about our children, and about our parents and senior citizens. So the NAACP and those women who empowered me, and many of you who are in the audience today, many of you who are in leadership in the Delaware NAACP State Conference, this conference, this 2020 convention is for us to empower the present and the next generation, because where we have made a historical, your own homegrown Joe Biden is now president-elect. We're so proud, Divine Nine, the AKAs, all of us women are proud that after the Shirley Chisholm, after the Barbara Jordan, here we are today in 2020, still in the land of the living, to see an African-American Indian woman becoming the next vice president-elect of this nation. What a great rejoicing day for all of us. But it's because we have kept the legacy of empowering each generation to empower the next generation. And so today, I hope as you hear your panels, as you hear my other colleagues, that you will recommit and rededicate yourself. Yes, it is lonely. 40 years, you think it's all been bed of roses for me? No, it haven't. But I had a commitment to do my part in my space to make sure that those women that went before me, my grandmother, my mother, my aunts, my extended family, what they empowered, my Sunday school teachers, what they empowered in me to be a woman of faith, a woman of caring and sharing. I hope, I know that I have. I take great pride in Rosalind Brock, who served as the youngest chair. I take great pride in working alongside Myrlie Evers while she was chair. And so with each one of those women who I helped and they assist to me in my growth, I hope that I am giving back. And I hope all of you today who are sharing in this 2020 Delaware State Conference, recommit yourself and continue in this great work and empower other women. Thank you so much for having me.
That was amazing. And to hear about all of the women that have empowered our generation, some of whom we have never heard of, was truly inspirational. Thank you so much, Dr. Dukes, for being here with us today and sharing your thoughts and experiences as a legendary and iconic civil rights activist. We truly thank you. It is pioneers like you that keep us stirred up to continue doing the great work of this organization. We will now take a short break and we're going to recognize our sponsors.
Price, a member of the Newark NAACP branch. I'm also a member of the Delaware chapter of the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. I serve as the president of AFSCME District Council 81 and the secretary treasurer of the Delaware State AFL-CIO. It is my pleasure to be with you today, and I'm honored to be moderating the panel discussion on We Voted, Now What Do We Do? Our half-hour discussion will be followed by a Q&A segment, so please submit your questions to the Q&A. So now, let's meet our esteemed panelists, starting with Kat Cottle. I will give each one of them the opportunity to introduce themselves so that you will get a full picture of their background and the work that they are doing. We'll start with Kat Cottle.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Faith. Thank you to everyone. I work with Faith at AFSCME District Council 81. I am a staff rep primarily, but I also help with our legislative and political agendas here at Council 81. I am also the female vice chair for Newcastle County Democratic Party, and the several other hats that I wear. I work with the YMCA with their youth and government and Model UN programs with high school and middle school students. My background also is in campaign politics. I've worked in campaigns since 2006 and working with a variety of candidates from statewide all the way down to
Can you get out that door with that one?
all the way down to school board district, or I'm sorry, school board candidates. Thanks, Faith.
Okay.
You're welcome. We'll now hear from Simone Philpotts.
Good morning, everyone. My name again is Simone Philpotts. I wear a number of hats, like Kat mentioned. I serve as the statewide social action coordinator for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I serve as the public policy and advocacy chair for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women and the policy director at the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. By day, I am a doctoral student at the University of Delaware, studying specifically urban affairs and public policy. I do my background. I started off as a legislative aide for now retired Senator Margaret Rose Henry, and then went on to work with Senator Chris Coons before I went back to pursue my PhD, do a lot of research, policy research around education, Black women, race-based, everything that soror Dr. Dukes was talking about as far as inequities faced by the African-American population. So glad to be here today.
Awesome. Taisha Greer.
Hi, my name is Taisha Greer. I am actually a co-coordinator and organizer with Network Delaware. My actual history was I was in the medical field up until a couple months ago, courtesy of COVID. Then I had the pleasure to work on a couple of campaigns, one for our new Senator-elect, Marie Pinckney. And so right now I do a lot of organizing and engaging, civic engagement. And I also work with Simone with the Community Policy Institute through Network Delaware.
Awesome. Sharaya Ray Moore.
Good morning, everyone. I am Sharaya Ray Moore, and I am state representative-elect for the 8th District in Middletown, Delaware. My background stems from the last 2 years. I've been a public school educator. Prior to then, I worked for the legislature here at the House. So I'm now experiencing what it's like to be on the other side. I'm committed to making sure that our system, our government system is providing equity across the board for all people that look like us on this call. So I'm excited to be part of the panel today. Thank you.
Awesome. And Marie Pinckney.
Good morning, Ms. Faith, and good morning, everyone. What an honor to be on this panel of beautiful faces and energy. My name is Marie Pinckney. I am the state senator-elect for Delaware's 13th State Senate District, covering parts of Newark, Newcastle, and Bear. I work as a social worker at Christiana Hospital. Most of my history there has been in trauma, so helping patients who have experienced acute trauma situations to discharge from the hospital and to discharge into whatever their next level of care may be, or to overcome whatever barriers are stopping them from discharging to a safe level of care. My background and interest lies in equity, the dismantling of racist systems, and healthcare, improving access to healthcare, and making sure that we have an equitable healthcare system. So thank you so much for this honor, NAACP. I'm excited for this conversation.
Awesome, everybody. That is awesome. So, welcome, my sisters. And let me just say that I am in total awe of the representation that we have on this panel today. We have grassroots organizations, labor unions, political representation, and distinguished sorority members here today. So, empowered women have definitely shown up today. So let's get to what we're here to discuss. We know that through grassroots organization, membership organization, and campaign efforts, Delaware saw its higher voter turnout in years in this past election. So as the discussion is titled, we voted, now what do we do? So I want to start with Taisha. Just tell me a little bit about, where you see that going. We voted, so now what do we do?
Now that we voted, I think we need to start with our local and state government, finding out who our representatives are. I think it's easy to fall back and be complacent once you think that you've won already, because we won the blue wave, we did what we wanted to do. But these progressive policies, these policies that we want to see, they're not going to push themselves. So I think it's important that everybody learns who your representatives are, form relationships with them, see what bills they're trying to pass, see what platforms that they ran on, and hold them accountable. Show up to your RD district meetings, join your RD committee. Do things to show people we voted you in, but now we want to see what you're going to do, and we're paying attention, not just the 6 months before the election, but we're paying attention from day one.
Absolutely. And Kat, same question for you.
Sure. So I actually would just kind of expand on what Taisha said, and just so that everyone is kind of on the same page, because I think those of us who are in the field, we tend to use acronyms. So I just want to explain a couple of things that she said too. So RD is a representative district, and when we're talking about committees, the Democratic Party specifically, and I don't want to assume that everyone is a Democrat, but for the Democratic Party, we organize the party on the representative district level. And so every representative district in the state of Delaware in the Democratic Party has a committee. And we are getting ready to start reorganization in January. So this is a perfect time to do this. Taisha's absolutely correct. So we voted, we got these people elected, and let's hold their feet to the fire. And the best way to do that is like Taisha says, to get involved at your representative district level. The DelDems website, which is deldems.com, the party's gonna be very upset that I didn't remember that website, that information for each representative district, again, across the state of Delaware, will have that information on when the reorganization meetings start. The only requirement to be on your representative district is to be a registered Democrat. That's it. There's no other requirement. And then I think start forming those relationships with your state representatives now. You don't have to wait to be on your representative district. And by the way, if being a part of your representative district, because you're not a Democrat, you're not a Republican, you're a registered independent, you can still have a relationship with your elected officials, and start at the school board level, start at your city council, start at whatever level makes the most sense to you, because we have to have a voice, and we have to have that voice at the local level. School board is just as important as our state senators and as our US senators. So yeah, getting involved at the local level, and reaching out when you're not sure how to do it, reach out to some folks that do know, and get some of that guidance. Because being empowered by empowered people, that's what it's all about.
All right, Simone, your input.
just going to keep going on this train that Taisha and Kat started around advocacy. So Kat talked about like getting involved on the political sort of level. I'm going to talk about on the advocacy sort of level. So advocacy has, for me, as I teach people, advocacy has 3 A's, and that's awareness, advancement, and action. First, you could hear a podcast about, Black women dying at 4 times rate higher than white men and women from giving birth. And you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do about this? You want to advance this new fact that you've learned by getting involved with different organizations. So we've got a number of organizations represented on this in this conference. So you've got Network Delaware. Network Delaware has issue-based campaigns where you can find what you're really passionate about, get involved, get connected to people who want to see change in these different ailments that we've found. And then the final thing is action. So action takes different forms, whether it's simply wearing a t-shirt to increase awareness about the issue that you just learned about, or it's calling Senator-elect Pickney or Representative-elect Moore about, hey, what are you going to do about Black women dying? Like, we need to do something, or emailing them. Delaware is an amazing place that you can see these people in Costco and talk to them. But the awareness comes with the education. So it's also knowing what representative to ask for what problem. So you might not want to necessarily ask your congresswoman about a crack on your sidewalk. But if you know that your state representative has some authority to fix that crack on your sidewalk, then you would go to the right person. So that's how you would kind of hold your representatives accountable through advocacy.
Awesome information. We're going to move now to our newly elected officials. And I'll be so glad when I can finally say, and it's official, State Representative Moore and Senator Pinckney. So for now, I'm going to keep it casual. And Sharia, Ray, let's get your input. We can't hear you, Sharia. We can't hear you.
My AirPods are in.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's all been said already, but I'm gonna piggyback off of what Simone just said and talk about that advocacy piece. I think becoming civically engaged is our most important thing that we can do. Now that we're elected, what else is to do? There's still a lot more work to do. It doesn't stop at the voting booth, right? Simone just mentioned a lot of organizations that are boots on the ground, grassroots organizations that getting things done and trying to move Delaware in the right direction. Join these organizations. Me, how I started out is I was a part of the Urban League civic engagement program. It was a week and it was the best week of my life because through that program, that week's program, I learned so much about what it means to become civically engaged. What does it mean? How do you advocate? How do you move your community forward? What are the issues? How do you advocate for these issues? And through that program, I became connected, and then I got to the political side of the issues and became involved that way. So I encourage everyone who is listening and participating in this call, or who has questions, what do I do now? I want to become involved. Join an organization that best fits your passion. Even if you don't know your passion, reach out to someone. We can help you find what you're passionate about, and you can become an advocate that way. Become educated of, what's around you and what's going on. Stay connected. And the most important thing that has been said thus far is holding those who you just elected accountable. Because as long as they being held accountable, they have no choice but to answer you and to listen to you. But your voice has to be made heard. So that means calling, emailing, Unfortunately, we can't show up in person anymore because of COVID. But pick up that phone. Like my phone number, it has been plastered throughout the state of Delaware for the last several years, and I have not changed my number. So reach out and call. As these organizations are here to help.
Great, thank you. Marie?
You know, I was sitting over here like, please don't let me go last because they said all the great answers. What am I going to say last? I will echo the sentiments of all the amazing women on this call. I think that we can break this up into two really important groups: the power of community organizing and the power of civic engagement. Um, Civic engagement and community organizing are by far what got me here in this seat. I was just tired of complaining. I was tired of things being the same. I was tired of patients coming in and out of the hospital and recognizing that we could have stopped them from coming into the hospital in the first place. So I put my name on a ballot. And then once I did that, I was like, well, what do I do now? how do I get there? How do I become effective? And I joined the Gilliam Fellowship. And in that 10-month fellowship, I learned so much. And it's because there are people out there that really want to see this change happen. So I would like to encourage everyone to recognize the power of numbers, whether you are organizing on an issue-based campaign, whether you are organizing community-based, whether you are organizing a political campaign, there is power in numbers. There is most certainly someone out there that wants to do and change the same things that you want to do and change. Join up with them. Recognize that we don't always have to compete and we don't always have to start new organizations, that there's probably already someone out there doing the work. Join up with them, use that power in numbers. Someone mentioned the uniqueness of Delaware and the access that we have to our legislators. I will never forget Eugene saying to us in the Gilliam Fellowship one day that it is very likely that if 10 people call their state representative or their state senator about an issue, that state representative is likely to vote the way that those 10 people asked them to vote. There is power in numbers and there is power in the access that we have in the state of Delaware. And I just encourage everyone to utilize it because you're absolutely right. The work just got started when we got to November 4th. The work just got started. Now we get to really, really make the change. Now we get to really implement these agendas. And like everyone else says, hold us accountable. We are fallible human creatures. We don't know everything about everything. We know a little about a lot. And there are organizations that fill in the gaps for us, but hold us accountable and make sure that we are voting the way that we are supposed to. And if we don't, vote us out, run against us and vote us out. Because this movement is not just about one single individual. It is about the collective of us. And if one of us is not doing what needs to be done, the collective suffers.
Right. Awesome, ladies. I have to say that you guys are on point this morning. Everything that you hit on is just on point and awesome. Simone, I love the 3 A's. Marie, like you said, civic engagement. Kat giving out the information of the RDs. Taisha hitting it at the grassroots, and Sheree just saying hold everybody accountable. I mean, that's awesome. We do have a question. Wait a minute, it wasn't on here. Came up in the chat. There's a question that says, what would you recommend people do to stay up to date on key issues in order to hold elected officials accountable? And you've pretty much hit on that, but if anybody wants to answer that again.
I can add to that.
Okay.
I think that when you say key issues, I think that we need to think of like what is a key issue to you. So if you feel like, your school district officials aren't doing what they're supposed to, go to your school board meetings. If you are having problems with different issues, I think it's important that you connect yourself to look into the organizations and connect yourself to stuff that's important to you, because there are a lot of issues that are going on that don't affect everybody. So if everybody takes part in the ones that affect them as a collective, we end up covering everything and nobody gets left out.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Faith, the only thing I would add to that is don't let social media be the first place you go, right? Like when I first saw that question, I think my first reaction to it was like, find your unbiased news sources. Go to, if we're talking about legislative hall, like, so if we're talking about state legislation, go to the legislative webpage to kind of track legislation and things like that. Same thing when we're talking about your cities and your municipalities. School board's a little bit more difficult, especially now with COVID. There are some things that you can find on their websites as well. But just to kind of wrap up what Taisha was saying is kind of figure out what your key issues are. There are organizations too that have those key issues that also kind of help you track what your legislators are doing. Delaware United is a great example of that. I know for issues that surround women's healthcare, women's rights to choose and things like that, Planned Parenthood is another one, that they kind of track what those issues are, what bills they're looking at, and legislators that they're looking at in terms of how they're voting, or where maybe they've publicly said, I'm not voting for such and such, and maybe we need to move those people. One thing I did want to hit on, and I think both Senator-elect Pinckney and Representative-elect Moore hit on it both, is making those phone calls and voicing your opinion on legislation and making sure that they know where you stand, but mostly doing that in numbers. I know that, and Faith, I know that you know which one I'm going to probably talk about, but we've done that here at AFSCME when we've had bills that will hurt our members, and our members are mostly, working class, white and blue collar workers. And when we get our members to get on the phone and they start calling legislators, we've had legislators while we've been down at Legislative Hall pre-COVID, and legislators have come to us and said, okay, we heard you, we're done, we're pulling the bill, or we're not going to do it. You tell your members to back off, please. But that power in numbers is absolutely a huge thing. But in terms of holding, how to stay up to date, just stay off social media, because that's not where to go.
Okay. We do have a question, a couple questions. One question is, how do we get middle school children more engaged with local politics?
Can I start off with that one?
Yes. Look.
All right, so for the last 2 years, I have spent my time in teaching 6th and 7th grade ELA. I think the way to get the children involved is make it very relatable to them. I started by asking simple questions. Do you like what's going on in your community? And the answer is no. So what can you do with that answer? You can, teach them history. You can start changing the narrative of, different situations that has been stigmatized in our community, in the Black community as well, and start taking back the power of that narrative and putting it into their hands. And I'm like, at the end of the day, if you don't retain any information I'm teaching you from the curriculum, the next thing I want you to take away is how to be a productive citizen in your community. That means if you see something, what do you do? If something's going on that you do not like, these are the steps that you take. And one thing that I've always taught my students were the power of advocating for themselves. Whether it's you feel like a teacher gave you an unfair grade, go and talk to them. I think taking baby steps like this with, the youth, it will prepare them as they go forward in their lives, and it'll start, overflowing into their community aspect, to where they're going to start showing up to community centers and taking a voice on positions, because now they feel comfortable in themselves and confident in themselves that they can now carry out the mission. So I think, our educators have a lot of power to influence our students to start moving forward and start talking about the social justices movement and things that's going on in our society, and really talk to them and get their opinion and everything.
Awesome. We have another question. How do we keep voters' engagement up, as it was shown in the most recent election, 2020 presidential? Yes, they're asking, how do we keep voters engaged and keep the numbers up? So I guess we have as strong a presence as we did this election and the next election. So
Go ahead, Simone.
No, I was just going to say that that was like a pretty difficult question. That's a question that, we as grassroots people, we as political people have been trying to figure out since the beginning of time. Because, for at least the African American population, we have been suppressed and oppressed and feeling like our vote doesn't matter for so long that we become numb to the voting and election process. And we see that even with our most local election for the school board, less than 1% of the population participates, and they have the most direct impact on what happens in these schools. And so if we can have the voter turnout that happens for presidential elections, in school board elections, my goodness, I want to hear some answers too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we have another question in the Q&A. The political system often resists change by nature. How do we work that out?
So I saw that question and I was hoping you would ask it.
That's a good question.
It's a fantastic question, actually. So in all the things that I do, change is something that we deal with all the time. And one of the things that when I have to change something, or if I've got to push something that I know people aren't going to like, the first thing that I do is start to educate why that change is something that we need to do, right? Because human nature is to not like change. We like to do the things that we do, right? How many of us have heard, but that's not the way we do it. That's just, we've never done it this way before, right? We've all heard it. And when we start to educate people about why something needs to change, about this is, this, and maybe why it's good, and talk about why we were uncomfortable with that change, it starts to make that change a little bit easier. Change still hard. Change is always going to be hard. It's against human nature to like change. So I think communication is the first thing, and again, not through social media. We can't do face-to-face right now, but we certainly can, be a little bit more human about how we're communicating. So for me, that is the core of how we handle that.
Awesome. Anyone else have input on that?
I just wanted to add to that. I think that it's with everything, I agree with everything that Kat said, but I think it's also important that when we have conversations about things that are hard and difficult subjects, I think it's important that we remember that a lot of people it was just the way it's always been. So they don't have any real tangible, stock in this. It's just like, well, we've always done it this way. What's the problem? And I think that if we go back and start to educate people on why things were done a certain kind of way, how we got here, then I think that that's important before we throw in, okay, now we're going to change it. You know what I mean? But kind of like work them up, warm them up. We've been doing it this way because we were oppressing people. We don't want to oppress people anymore. We want everybody to have equal rights, equal opportunities. So I think that it's important that we warm people up, take away their they're not really invested in this. This is just how it's always been.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I jump in on that too, Ms. Faith?
Absolutely.
First, I want to snap for Ty, because when you start talking about all the snaps for Ty, that was a beautiful answer. And the other thing that I just kind of want to add to that too is, again, coming back to the power in numbers and holding legislators accountable, because legislators often, when you're in office for lengthy number of years, you become accustomed to what you think people want. You become accustomed to what what you think your surroundings look like. But if we can stay engaged with legislators and let them know that neighborhoods are changing, communities are changing, community needs are changing, and if we make sure that they stay current, and that as legislators stay current with the people in our districts and the people that we're elected to represent, we'll understand and recognize that needs of communities change and evolve, and many needs have not even been met, and the needs that people were striving to meet 20 years ago are not necessarily the needs that need to be met present day. So if we can find, and I think that comes back to the last question of how do we keep engagement up, which, as Simone said, is a question as old as the tale of time. If we can keep engagement up on both ends as legislators and as citizens, we can see the continuation and the evolution of the change that needs to occur. My biggest pet peeve is people saying to me, well, that's just the way we've always done it. Or it's like when people say, well, they said, who is they? Who's they? I don't know they. Give me a better answer than that. Give me some statistics, some foundation, you know. So if we can hold those parts together, I think that's how we create systems of change and momentums of change.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, my sisters, we're coming up on 10 minutes left in our discussion. So I think I'll take this time to give each of you to give us a closing remark. And Marie, we're going to start with you this time. So
be careful what you ask for, right? First, I want to thank the NAACP for just the opportunity to be on such an esteemed panel. NAACP welcomed me with open arms the first time I walked into the Newark chapter, and it's been a loving relationship ever since you guys got behind my campaign and so many other campaigns. So thank you for putting this together, and thank you for the work that the NAACP has been doing for decades. It is insurmountable work. I want to thank my guests, my co-panelists. Simone, I can't even explain how excited I am to be on the panel with you. I've been trying to get to Simone, so I'm excited. And Kat, it's a pleasure to meet you and to be on the panel with you. Miss Faith, my constituent, so definitely happy to be on the panel with you. Ty, as she said, made sure that our campaign ran smoothly and effectively, and me and Ray have been at this campaign thing together for a while. So this is an honor and a pleasure. I just want to encourage everyone to stay involved, to recognize the importance of your voice. One thing that I always like to point out on a state level is Representative-elect Wilson Anton's election was won, her primary election was won by 43 votes. So if you think that your vote doesn't matter, please talk to Representative Wilson Anton. Your vote matters. Every single vote matters. It makes a difference. Every single voice matters and makes a difference. And I always want to extend myself as a listening ear and as a community advocate, and now excitedly as a voice in Dover. I am ready to get to work. One of the things I've been saying the whole campaign and even now, and will continue to say, is let's get to work. So please feel free to reach out to me via email. Most people have my phone number or find it some kind of way, so I always answer, and let's get the work done.
Thank you so much, Senator. Sharaya Moore.
Thank you so much for having me to participate on this panel with such amazing women who has been putting the work in the community. And as Marie said, we're just ready to get to work. I want to encourage who is listening in. You took the first step by participating in this conference and listening to us speak today and join. Take it a step further now. I will put a charge out there. I charge you to do another step in advocacy today. Whether that is going to go tell a neighbor, a friend, your sister, your mother, someone is that I learned about a representative district today, and I'm going to go find mine today because I'm going to show up at the next meeting because my community needs me. That's the only way we're going to continue to change, and we have to continue to show up. So if anything you take away today, take away your power to create change in your community, no matter where you are, and no matter what part of Delaware that you live in. The NAACP is doing amazing work, but they cannot do it by themselves. The same with all the organizations that you heard on this conference call today. If you want to be involved, please get involved. There are things to do that is, some of them is minimal time commitment, but if you have all the time in the world, an organization will need your help as well. So please just feel encouraged, be empowered, and do the next step and join an organization, find out who your legislators are. It doesn't matter if you make a wrong call to the legislator, we will find you who your electeds are. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Representative Moore and Taisha. And I'm not going in, I'm going in the order that you appear on my screen. So I'm just, Taisha.
Hi. Okay. One thing I want to say is thank you to the NAACP for having me. I appreciate it. But I want to say that this is a powerful panel. And of all these people and all their great accomplishments, I have been doing this the shortest amount of time. So I want to encourage you to start today, okay? If you weren't doing it before, start today. I made a phone call in July, and here I am now. I learned everything I learned. Like, we want help. People want to teach people. We want to help you get engaged. So it doesn't matter your education, your background, the fact that you have a voice, the fact that you have a vote, that's all that it takes. We will do the rest. So I empower everyone to take the next step, whatever it is. If you don't know what it is, I will drop my information and I will help you find it. Okay? Because an average person like me got laid off and I got involved. You can do it too. That's all I got. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Taisha. Simone?
Listen, I'm an average person too, Taisha, okay? Before I jump into my closing remarks, though, I want to acknowledge David Lamar Williams Jr. Said about what he said about San Francisco giving women of color $1,000 a month for prenatal care. So under the Metropolitan Women's and Urban League, we have the Building People Power campaign, and one of the issue campaign called Black Mothers Empower, and they recently got a COVID grant, and they're raising money to be able to provide doulas to at least 10 women of color. So just to piggyback off of what's being done in California, which is one of the most progressive states in addressing this ailment. And I think that, and I also put a link in the chat to say how you go about finding your legislators. I think all of us said, hey, you need to find and contact your legislator, but here, this is how you do it. So it's right there in the chat. Make sure you find your legislator and make sure that they know your name. So thank you so much, NAACP, for the invitation. I know that the Metropolitan Women's and the National Urban League, as well as the National Coalition of 100 Black Women and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated have been lifetime partners of the NAACP, marching for social justice from the beginning of time, and we are continuing to do this march together. I am really, really, really humble and honored to serve on a panel with such esteemed women, such as you know, senator and representative and co-organizer. Like, this is amazing. I'm really thrilled about that, and thrilled to keep the work going. Advocacy, I bleed and drink and eat advocacy, and so let's begin the work.
Yes, thank you. And Kat?
Thanks again, everyone. Now I know what Senator Pinckney, I'm just going to say Senator because you know what, it's fun. Now I know what it was like to go last. You're right, this is not fun. There are just a couple of things I wanted to say. I think it was Ray that said something about you check in with Representative Anton Wilson about what it's like, because every vote counts. I also know what it's like to lose races by 57 votes. I ran a race where I lost a primary by 57 votes. So every vote counts. Your voice, your vote. And just, I got to put a plug in here really quick. Even though it's a national, it's U.S. Senate, Georgia, we've got 2 Senate seats that could absolutely make the difference. And, you know, Taisha says she got involved in July. And when I was asked to be a part of this panel, and people were saying, you know, Simone's going to be there, and Marie and Ray, and hey, do you know Taisha? I said, I haven't met her, but I know her name. So she's already making a name for herself. So she tries to play it off like, you know, she's just average, but she's not. She's not. She's going places. I am absolutely thrilled to have been here this morning with these women. We have to stick together, you know, no matter what, right? Empowered women empower women, and jumping in and getting started in this was not always an easy thing, especially sometimes in Delaware, it's a little harder to break in, but now that we've got organizations like Delaware United, and it's getting easier. And I just want to say, you know, make sure that this is not the last time that you're hearing about reaching out to your elected officials. Let's keep them there. Just to circle back on one of the questions that we had about how do we keep up voter engagement, since we've got 2 elected officials right here on this panel, I'm just going to put this little plug in there. Let's make voting easier. Let's make access to voting easier. Let's make mail-in voting a thing, not just because there's a pandemic, but because it's the right thing to do. That is something that labor has been pushing for a while. It's something that the Democratic Party has been pushing for a while. I think it's something that we can now get done in Delaware. I won't say why, but the one person on this panel knows because she's here. But I think we can get it done. I think we need to make voting accessible and more accessible. And I think that is why we can continue to get voter turnout and the high numbers that we have. But it's also because people like the women on this panel are going to continue to work. And to Taisha's point, to everyone who's made this point, we want to keep teaching people to do what we're doing, because at some point, working an 80-hour week right before the election is not something that is sustainable. So the more people that we can teach to do it, the more we can get done. So thank you again for having me on the panel. And Faith, it was great seeing you. I'll see you on Monday at the office.
So just let me say in closing, thank you again to each of you showing up and taking part in this panel discussion with me. You all, each and all of you are beautiful inside and out. I wasn't nervous, not one bit, moderating this panel. And that is not about me. That is about each one of you making me feel comfortable enough to moderate this panel. So each of you singularly and collectively are the embodiment of empowered women empowering other women. So just thank you again. And this will not be the last that we see of each other. We will continue working together, my sisters, okay? So thank you so much. This concludes our panel.
Hi, and this is Flora McKendall again, and I'm back to introduce our next keynote speaker, Kyra Mitchell. Kyra is a young emerging leader, civil rights activist, scholar, and Saginaw, Michigan native. She is a recent graduate from Eastern Michigan University, receiving a Bachelor of Business Administration with a concentration in accounting. Prior to graduation, Kyra worked at JP Morgan Chase in their global finance and business management programs as a financial analyst. She intends to use the knowledge she gained to further develop financial literacy in communities of color and help Black businesses thrive. Additionally, Kyra will continue to push for Black leaders to occupy spaces in which we are underrepresented. Kyra currently serves as the chairman of the National Youth Work Committee and president of the Michigan State Conference Youth and College Division. At Eastern Michigan, she served as vice president of Eastern Michigan University's Black Student Union and National Association of Black Accountants, director of diversity and community outreach for student government. As a member of the Honors College, she is also a member of the Black Honors Students Organization. Throughout her time in the NAACP, Kyra has worked with various units across her state and region to implement training, ensure units have the resources they need, and ultimately expand the NAACP's reach to communities that need it. She uses her platforms in the NAACP to advocate for women's rights, criminal justice reform, Black political power, and other issues. This enables her to work with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights and the Michigan Department of Education to create a racial equity program for township and city managers across the state. In 2019, Kyra received EMU's Diversity and Inclusion Award for her efforts to change the culture on its predominantly white campus and educate minority students on the power they have. In 2020, she was recognized by her university with the Martin Luther King Student Award alongside Governor Gretchen Whitmer for her work around campus and in the community to help fulfill Dr. Martin Luther King's dream. Ladies and gentlemen, help me extend a warm welcome to Kyra Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to the NAACP Delaware State Conference for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to give remarks today. It's because of leaders like Dr. Hazel Dukes and all of the wonderful and amazing women that were just on the panel before me that I'm able to sit before you on this Zoom call and speak to you guys today. All of these women provide spaces for young women like myself to be able to be strong and supported. So I want to say thank you for that as well. We have to recognize that the work and the shoulders that we stand on, it hasn't always been as intersectional and inclusive for all women. Even today, we have to remind a lot of people that you win with Black women. It's clear that the contributions of Black women are the arc of the change in this country. It is our contributions that birth liberties and freedoms that were not once thought of. From Sojourner Truth to Ida B. Wells to Shirley Chisholm, their missions have advanced the lives of all of us, and we continue to use their stories, her story, to fight back against racism, the inequalities, the patriarchy, the bigotry, xenophobia, homophobia, the color systems, and other things that pin people against us and pin us against each other. We have to fight back against this together. Thinking back to some of the women who have played such a pivotal role in my life, being in the NAACP, my state conference president, Yvonne White and Camelia Landrum, are two absolutely amazing women that I don't think I would be where I'm at today within the organization or just within life in general if I didn't have those women to help influence me and kind of guide me, not only within the association, but within life. Helping me to grow and develop and to get involved in those different areas. It's always important to make sure that you have those mentorship and those different relationships, because if you don't have someone you can't always advocate for yourself. So it's always good to have a lot of other people in spaces advocating for you. Today, our fight is the same fight that was fought hundreds of years ago, but we're fighting a little bit differently. We have the technology that wasn't available before, and we have a little bit more advantages that they didn't have in the past. For far too long, Black women have been fighting on the front lines for issues that have impacted all women. However, we've been erased from the stories. Looking back at the suffrage movement, it wasn't that they were fighting for voting rights for all women. They were fighting just for white women, but Black women were on those front lines fighting for voting rights as well. Even looking back to the civil rights movement, a lot of the work that Black women did within the civil rights movement it's not erased, but it's just not told as prominently as you hear from Dr. King and other stories like that during the civil rights movement. Women have been a part of the movement, and Black women have been a part of the movement and a part of the front line for centuries. And it's great to see now that we're starting to be recognized for the work that we have, going from Kamala Harris being the first African-American vice president for the United States and other things like that is amazing to see, because representation truly does matter. And once we have the representation in those spaces, we're able to put the idea into other little girls' heads that if they can do it, you can too. Ladies, it's time to recognize us, to fight for us. This is our moment of reckoning. As we enter another rise of COVID in our country and are predicted to be one of the deadliest, Black people have been at the center of who has been most affected. Black women have been most affected. We sit on the front lines, not only as people being affected by COVID, but also as essential workers putting our lives on the line every day to make sure that we can protect our communities. There are so many fights for us to push forward. We have to continue to fight until all women receive equality and equity. From the fights of reproductive rights and being able to have a say in our body and no one else being able to control what we're able to do with our own bodies. From fighting the period tax and the pink tax that they put on feminine hygiene products, to decreasing the maternal mortality rate against African-American women. Erasing the pay gap that we have, not only between men and women, but between Black women and white women, or Native American women and white women. There's so much that people tend to forget that they break it down to when you look at different sections of intersectionality. Fighting against colorism. And then also remember to advocate for not just cisgender women, but also trans women, because we can't have a true movement and fight for equality if our fight doesn't include everyone. If our fight doesn't include the Black, trans, handicapped person who is also queer, then our fight will not be successful. Because if we can only look at sections of it and say, okay, I'm fighting for women, we have to make sure we fight for all women, we fight for all people, and we fight for equality on all levels. Because if we don't include everyone, we can't be successful. Everyone is putting in something for this fight, and we need to make sure that we achieve victory for everyone. But on top of that as well, I feel as Black women, a lot of times we have this superwoman complex that's put on us, that we have to be the people who fight for everything, that we have to be the strongest in the room. And it's okay to not be the strongest at all times. To give this superwoman complex is something that can be mentally draining and exhausting, because everyone needs that time. And I want to make sure to put out there too, that especially in these moments where we find ourselves on our 9th and 10th month of a global pandemic, being in our homes and away from everyone, however, still having to find ourselves fighting in the streets to make sure that we are no longer being gunned down by police, to make sure that our families are safe, that our voting rights are secure, and people are being put into leadership positions who represent us properly. We have to remember to also put our mental health first, because if our mental health isn't up to par with what we need to be, if we aren't in our best state, then our fight can't be the best that it is. And in order to keep pushing forward with this fight that we have ahead of us, we need to make sure that we keep ourselves in the best shape possible, not only for ourselves, but for future generations to come. A lot of times I like to say that, coming from the youth and college division, a lot of people, they'll say that the youth are the future, they're the fighter leaders of tomorrow. But I would push back on that a lot, and I would say that we are the leaders of today. We're the leaders that we see on the front lines. Young people were at the front lines of the civil rights movement. They've been at the front lines of Black Lives Matter. They've been on the front lines of a lot of these protests that have been happening across the country. They've been at the front lines of making sure that people are getting out to vote. This year, young people turned out in record numbers to vote. And I think that shows that we're not gonna wait until tomorrow to make sure that we have that opportunity. We're gonna make sure that we take the opportunity today. So my message to all of the women on this call is to remember to keep fighting, because our fight isn't done yet. We still have so much work ahead of us, but we've come so far. We can't give up now. My message to the men on this call is to make sure that you use the privilege that you have as a male in America to make sure that you're advocating for all women to be included. We can't fight this fight just as Black women or white women or just women in general. We need to come together and bring all of our identities with us to make sure that we're fighting for everyone, to make sure equality and equity is held on all levels for all people. My message to the young people is to make sure that you stay included. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you're too young to do something, that you need to wait your turn. Because if we waited our turn, we'd be waiting forever. You need to take the opportunities that you have to not let anyone silence you. If you have an idea, speak up, share that. Don't ever feel like your idea or your passion or something like that isn't as equal to someone else's. We all have a level playing field, and we all can share those ideas, especially in this fight and in this movement. The idea that you can bring to the table can be something that nobody ever thought of in a way. The young people bring such a unique perspective, so don't ever go into a situation thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here, just kind of listen back. If you have something that you wanna share, don't think that you can't share it because, oh, I'm only 15, I'm only 16, or I'm younger than that, and I'm in a room with people who are 30 plus. Age doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, things like that. If you have something that you want to share, make sure that you don't feel silenced ever. Make sure you share those opinions that you have. And then a message just to everyone on this call is to remember that the seats that we currently hold are rented. We won't be in the positions that we're in forever. And we need to make sure that we bring up the next generation and the next leaders to take over after us. Because if we let the fight stop with us in our seats, in our positions that we hold now, the fight will stop and we won't get the victory that we want to see. So we need to make sure that we mentor and we uplift other people and we share the resources and the knowledge that we have so that the next people to come after us will fight even harder, even stronger, and push forward to the victory line. Thank you.
And now, a special message from Scott X. Esdale, Chairman, National NAACP Criminal Justice Committee.
Greetings, my name is Scott X. Esdale, and I'm the Chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee of the NAACP National Board of Directors. I'm also the State President of the Connecticut State Conference of NAACP branches. As the National Criminal Justice Chair, it's very disturbing to see so much turmoil in this country pertaining to police accountability and so many officers hurting, paralyzing, and killing our people with no consequences. Black communities nationwide have seen catastrophic deaths from the coronavirus, and they've seen layoffs and loss of jobs that have been astronomical. We have seen some of the largest marches, protests, rallies, and riots the nation has ever seen since the 1960s. It seems like every week or every other day there's another fatal incident between the Black community and the police. criminal justice reform has become the #1 issue in the nation. We applaud the young activists, the entertainers, the artists, and the athletes that are using their money, their gifts, talents, and their platforms to help the criminal justice reform movement across the nation. These activists have supported the NAACP with the We Are Done Dying movement. Once again, we as the NAACP and our community are done dying. The NAACP National Criminal Justice Committee encourages all of you to join your local criminal justice committee and prepare to get busy. For 111 years, the NAACP has fought against every major crisis, plot, and plan that has come against our people. We are an organization of freedom fighters that fights and wins. We fought against the KKK, Jim Crow, racist police departments, white racist politicians, the heroin epidemic, the crack epidemic, the AIDS epidemic, the war on drugs, mass incarceration, and everything else that's wrong with this nation. And throughout our history, the NAACP has always fought, and we are still standing. So we need you to get involved, get active, and continue to fight. Because when we fight, we win. Thank you for your support of the NAACP. Take care, be safe, and stay strong. Peace.
Ida B. Wells was an African-American investigative journalist, educator, and an early leader in the civil rights movement. She was one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. She arguably became the most famous Black woman in America during a life that was centered on combating prejudice and violence. She also fought for equality for African Americans, especially women.
Ida B. Wells, she sort of like embodies everything that the suffrage movement was about, everything that rights for women and specifically about Black women were about. I mean, this is a woman who came from adversity. She lost her parents at a young age. She helped raise her siblings, but she was able to get herself educated and to make a big impact on the rights for not just Black women, but women in general, and for Black people in general.
Anna Julia Cooper was born a slave August 10, 1858 in North Carolina. She graduated from Oberlin College in 1884. In 1902, she was named the principal at M Street High School, and she was an educator there through 1930. At the age of 67, she received her PhD in 1925.
So I think that we have come a long ways. If you look, you will see Black women in all professions doing all kinds of things. They're working as CEOs, they're partners, they're surgeons. So we are doing a lot of things. We've come a long way. However, we still face many of the same issues that we faced, maybe not so much in 1920, but we still face issues that hold us back. We still have not broken all the way through the glass ceiling. We still are striving to do that.
That's right.
It's an exclusive sorority of sorts that just 6 years ago only had one active member. Today, there are 7 Black women running America's 100 largest cities. I want to know, how does your Blackness make you uniquely positioned for such a time as this?
That's a really great question, because I live in a city where we're less than 11%. We're a mid-sized city, 215,000 people, 11% African American. And so it says a lot. And let me be clear, I'm the second Black woman to serve back-to-back in this city. So that says a lot about my community and my city. But I will also say that I've just been able to lead. I've just been able to be Victoria Woodard's from Tacoma and lead. I never had to lead with my color. And last week, I was challenged to be not just Victoria Woodard's mayor of Tacoma, but Victoria Woodard's a Black woman who happens to be mayor of Tacoma. And I can tell you that it wasn't something that I've ever had to step up and do before. But I know that me being mayor at this time is making a difference in this matter for my city.
If there's ever been a moment since I've been mayor, and I'm sure my sister mayors can agree with this is just a time to lead with our head and our heart. My heart is above everything else. I am a mother to 4 Black children in this country, and then taking all of the emotions and all of the cares and concerns that go along with that, and translating it to my head on how do you lead in a moment in time where there is no playbook. There's been no playbook for COVID-19. We've just had to figure it out. But I think that when it comes from an authentic place and a pure place of caring concern, you get true compassionate leadership, and that's what I've been able to bring. But I think the other side of that is when it comes from a place that's not pure, you get what you are seeing out of the White House, and that's just a catastrophe.
2 things come to my mind. Of course, Baton Rouge had an officer-involved shooting in 2016. I was running for mayor at that time, and thankfully became the first female mayor of our city of Baton Rouge, the first female and African American. And so I had to navigate what I see going on right now, my first year in office. And the second thing that came to my mind, and I will tell you that we've made progress, but the second thing that has come to my mind over and over again is that being a baby boomer, I grew up in the 60s, and I was born and raised in Chicago, and I've spent my adult life here in Baton Rouge. But when I was in the 3rd grade, I heard the story of Emmett Till, and I just didn't hear it from any teacher, but I heard it from his mother, Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley. So that has always stuck in my mind as a student at Carter Elementary School in Chicago, Illinois.
What I'm struck by is we have a special responsibility. We control big budget workforces in Washington. I'll speak for us, largely African American. Our school district serves mostly African American children. So we have a special responsibility in this time of COVID. And I say frequently that female politicians are attacked more frequently and more wrongly than anybody else. But I think that the difference that you're seeing now is there's a critical mass of us, and we are sticking together and working together and sticking up and protecting each other. And we have allies in all of the Americans who really want solid leadership, moral leadership, and people that will speak truth to power.
are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Gene Coleman II. I play football at the University of Delaware. I'm a senior. I'm studying history and criminal justice, and thinking about going. I have another football season after I graduate. Thinking about going into masters. My mom's been trying to talk me into it. I haven't really made a decision yet, but yeah, I'm from Montclair, New Jersey, as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, what inspired you to get involved with criminal justice?
Well, actually, in my town, a lot of the coaches that I grew up being coached by for all my different sports, basketball, football, wrestling, all that, they were actually police officers and like detectives and stuff. The chief of police in my town was one of my head coaches in football. So it was something that criminal justice was something that was always like around me, you know. And also my grandfather was also a cop in East Orange, New Jersey. So it was all, and plus I've always been kind of interested in like, this is about to sound weird, but always like different criminal justice shows and stuff like that, I guess. And it just, stuff like that always intrigued me, FBI and things like that. So that's really what made me look into it.
Yeah, that's really cool. What are some criminal justice issues that you are most passionate about, and why?
Well, for sure, it's the treatment of African American men and women in the criminal justice system. So whether it be about things such as an African American man committing a crime and receiving a harsh punishment, and we see it all the time. You know, a black man commits a crime and gets a certain amount of time, and the white man can commit the same crime and get a lower amount of time, lower sentencing, and stuff like that. And then on top of that, things like, obviously, what is very going on a lot this year, which is very big, is like police brutality and killing African American men, women, and getting away with it. So there's things like that have really, sparked my mind and really made me focus in on it, because I feel like that stuff is definitely something that we got to pay attention to and really address and get rid of. So
Yeah, I totally agree. Those are two things that are really important. And what are some criminal injustice activists that you really look up to, and why?
Well, for me, when it comes to things of that nature, I've never thought about being a lawyer or anything like that, but one person for me is definitely Johnny Cochran. I mean, somebody that really stood up for African American in the criminal justice system for years. And obviously, he's one of the more famous ones, but that's somebody that, I've always kind of looked up to when it came to criminal justice as far as being an African American male.
Yeah, that's really great. I have followed people like Colin Kaepernick and Brian Stevenson. We're both criminal justice activists. So I really can't wait to see more of what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Now let me introduce Kaylin and Cassidy Parker. Hi, how are you ladies today?
Hi, I'm doing great, thank you.
Yes, that's really great. So can you introduce yourselves and tell us what you do?
I'm Kaylin Parker. I'm a high school student at Dover High School. I'm the president of the Central Delaware Youth NAACP branch, and I have advocated for equity in schools since my sophomore year, and I'm just really passionate about it and hope to continue doing so.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm Cassie Parker. I've been advocating for equity in schools since my sophomore year as well. I'm a member of the same branch as my sister. Sorry. So yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Yeah.
Yes, same here. But Why did you decide to start hosting clothes drives? Because I know that's something that you both are very interested in.
Yes, right now we're planning a clothes drive, and I decided to do it because there's a really big um, issue with homelessness in Delaware right now. Specifically, I don't know about other parts of Delaware, but specifically Dover. And I just feel like it's really, really important to take care of the people who live in our country, no matter their status or class or anything like that. And I feel like people deserve clothes no matter what their situations are, and they deserve. And it's also a health issue as well. Just keeping you safe and from the elements and everything.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing to do. So how can people help support your clothing drives?
Right now we're just still putting it together right now. But we will be putting more information out probably later next month at our Instagram at the Central Delaware. Oh, sorry, at the Central Delaware NAACP, and you can follow us there and just keep up with our information. And we'll basically just be accepting clean clothes, probably newer clothes, um, and that's it.
Yeah, that's a really just great thing to do. So make sure you guys support them. And so something else that you guys like doing is with police reform. So what are some changes that you would like to see for police reform?
Some changes that we'd like to see with the police reform is that we would really like, stricter, stricter rules on what, excessive force and all that. And also we would like stricter rules on when cops can or cannot turn off their body cams, or when they can or cannot cover them. We'd like reports on all uh, excessive force cases to be made public so that everybody can see them, because right now there's no accountability for the police whatsoever, and really that's all we really want to do is increase accountability.
Yeah, that's a really great thing to focus on. Something else that I know is really big right now is Black Lives Matter, and that's something else that you guys are just really focused on. What are some ways that you have supported the Black Lives Matter movement and police reform?
Basically, what we've been doing is just really pushing for the youth to really open up. Right now, we're working on starting a Black Student Coalition statewide, basically to just enforce Black excellence and also um, equity in schools. Really taking care of Black students, Black and Brown students, and taking care of how we perceive ourselves and how other people perceive us, and basically just trying to break down a lot of stigmas or just things that have been around for a really long time. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important lesson. So thank you so much, Kayla and Cassidy, for your time. So now I would like to bring Jasmine Dickey into the conversation. Hi, Jasmine. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes. So I'm Jasmine Dickey. I'm on the women's basketball team here at the University of Delaware. My major is sports health. And what me and my team are doing, and a bunch of other teams like football, we're trying to find ways to not increase, but fix the justice reforms in Newark, Delaware. We've been getting involved with a lot of officials in the state, as far as the general attorney or the governor, and just talking about different reforms that we have in mind as far as police brutality and anything that goes within the justice system, and just trying to be a part of that change. So, yes.
That's amazing. What are some strengths that you have to be a great activist?
I think just making sure that everybody's on the same page and making sure everybody's together. I think we all have the same goal and the same outcome as far as, wanting change and wanting improvement for Black lives. So I think everybody being on the same page and, wanting the same uh, justice reforms and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really great. So you are an activist for Black Lives Matter. How do you use your voice and your platform to support that movement?
Yeah, so I think basketball is, and sports in general, I think a lot of students look up to a lot of sports. So I think us getting involved in activism as well is like another way to use our platform and our voices. Um, just making us known that we're more than just basketball players, or more than just football players, more than just soccer, volleyball, this, that, and the third, and just getting out there and proving that, we want change and we're not just going to sit back and just play our sport. So.
And you have just mentioned that you work inside with your teams on the sports that you do. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so women's basketball, we were constructing an email to send out to the governor of Delaware, just talking about the police reforms after the incident with, sorry, the name's slipping my mind. One of the guys that got killed, I'm sorry. But he got killed or whatever. So we wanted to talk to the state official and just figure out ways that we can change the policies and the systems of the police system. And just figure out ways that we can help also in that change. That led to us talking to the general attorney and getting everybody involved as far as different sports. And we came up with a bunch of reforms and getting active in the legislature as well. It just went from there.
Yeah, is so amazing. So how do you think being part of the University of Delaware basketball team helps you be a better activist?
I think it's building leadership, not only on the court, but off the court. And just getting everybody involved in something that's bigger than just sports. And just being an activist altogether is something I'm passionate about. And just wanting to get my voice heard and make everybody aware that, we want change and we want change now.
That is a really great thing to take away. So you are also part of the task force to create justice reforms. Talk to me a little bit about the task force and the changes you want to see.
Yes. So actually stemmed from a letter from to the governor. We created that task force and we presented our reforms to the general attorney as far as body cams, the invasion of home privacy, as far as the Breonna Taylor situation, and just a bunch of other reforms that go against the police department and ways that we can better that. One big one was hours as far as training and, how the police are getting trained here in Newark and in the state of Delaware as a whole. And no, it just went up from there. We got a lot of support from the general attorney and just everybody else as far as the legislator and all of the officials here in Newark.
Yeah, that is just so cool. So thank you so much. And so now I would just like to bring everyone back in for some group questions. Well, what are some ways that you guys all help get the word about your cause?
I guess I can answer that first. Well, obviously, like I said, I'm a football team here, and in the state of Delaware, as you guys know, there's no like professional sports teams or anything like that. In reality, we kind of see ourselves as the professional sports team. If you go all the way from the northern part of Delaware all the way to the southern part of Delaware, there's a lot of University of Delaware Blue Hen stuff all over, all over the state. So we've really just been able to take that platform and really just use it in this situation. Like we've had our media, for my team specifically, we've had our media team create a video about using us in games and practices, video footage that they've had of us over the last couple of years, just to create a video showing unity and showing what we feel like the whole world should kind of understand, is that it doesn't really matter which the color of your skin is. You know, everybody should be treated equally, based upon who they are and how they act and how they express themselves to others. So, you know, things like that, it's really helped us. I know Jasmine probably feels the same. Just the fact that we've been able to, you know, and our athletic director has really given us freedom. Our athletic director, our coaches have given us freedom to really use our voices and stand up and stand together. And we are continuing to do so. We have still have created the whole entire group for everybody on the campus that is an athlete to join, and it's really taken off. We've gotten this, as Jasmine said earlier, we've gotten to speak to people that are like, you know, that without our platform, you know, a regular student here might not have ever been able to have the chance to sit on a Zoom call with the governor of Delaware and stuff like that. So, you know, it's really helped us, and we're hoping that this the platform that we have, we can use it to help others and help change what is considered kind of the norm today. And yeah.
That's a really great way to get the word out. Would anyone else like to answer or add on? Right. So for my next question, how do you balance school and then all the activism things that you do and the athletics?
I guess I think it goes hand balancing school and activism all together. It's not that hard because it's something that I think we're all passionate about. And I think it stems from us being, you know, we want to do good in our sport, you know, want to excel in that, but it's also more than that. So, you know, we're focusing our energy on, you know, our reforms and community engagement and this, that, and the third, while juggling it. And I think it's something that, you know, I think we're balancing well. I mean, I know I can speak for myself, but I think that we are all balancing it well as far as, you know, wanting to do this instead of, you know, it's just being like, oh yeah, let's just do it. You know, it's something that we're passionate about, and, you know, balancing it is not that difficult. So.
Yeah. Well, I am really glad that you guys all are just doing such amazing things. So what has been the most rewarding experience as an activist so far?
One of the most rewarding experiences for me as an activist is really to see the perceptions or just the things that have changed so far in my community. Specifically in my high school, we're getting new curriculums, new extracurriculars with African American studies. We have more open conversation with teachers and administrators, and really just getting people to support you and maybe changing the way that people might have seen or experienced the movement before. So that's one of the most rewarding experiences, but also just like getting to work with people and getting to experience things like this convention. Like this convention is a really rewarding experience. Getting to really meet like-minded people and maybe not like-minded people. Getting to really experience different points of views and just different sides of arguments. I think that's really rewarding for me.
Yeah, that seems like a very rewarding moment. So what are some tips that you have for getting other youth more involved in being activists and making a change? How about we start with you, Cassidy?
Tips are really just like find groups to join, find people who, you know, are as passionate about the subject as you are, and you have to learn how to balance everything. You know, it's all about time management, and it's all about, you know, just finding the time. And you know, you can work with your branch, or you can work with school groups or something like that. So yeah, really it's just find people you can be around who have the same goals as you so that they can help push you towards your goals.
That's a really great tip. Would anyone else like to add on their answer?
Oh yeah, I guess I could just say that. I guess I'll just say that. And I just feel like when you want to start something, just don't really be scared. You know, it's obviously I have to thank Jasmine and her teammates because they really got the whole thing started as far as the University of Delaware athletes. But like, you know, just don't be scared to you know say something that may make people around you uncomfortable because you know and at the end of the day it's important to say and you know some people really need to hear it so at, if you feel like something needs to be said don't sit back and just hope somebody else says it because that's how things get left unsaid so I feel like if there's one thing that I would say just don't be afraid don't be scared to express yourself and to stand up for something that you feel like you need to be standing up for no matter how other people may view it or how what type of backlash. I see somebody had asked about backlash. I personally have not received any backlash, but thankfully. But even if I did, I can honestly say I wouldn't care because I'm doing something that I feel is right. So whether or not somebody else agrees with it is really none of my concern because at the end of the day, I'm fighting for something that I believe in, and the people around me believe in what I'm fighting for as well, and the people that are in our group are fighting for the same thing. So we all feel comfortable, and thankfully we are coming from people. We are coming from an area where we are around people that are making us feel comfortable. Like it's not in our students athletes against social injustices group there's not just black kids in there. Like one of my closest friends on my team, he's white. He's right there and in every meeting. And to me, that's the most important thing that we can have is to have people that aren't affected listening and trying to understand. So that when no matter who's watching, no matter who you feel like is paying attention, say what you feel because it's important that everybody understands.
Yes, I totally agree. Those are really great. Anyone else?
For me, I guess as a tip, I would say you can find people that have the same kind of mindset as you, and you can find groups. But what you also should do is make sure that, I mean, I do track. I didn't introduce myself with that, but is you have to make sure that the people that you know are also interested in those things, not just in those groups, but maybe find people. For me, as president of the NAACP at my branch for the youth, I made it a point to get people that I know interested in it and get people that I know to commit to it and be more and that makes them want to go and get more. And so it's just recruiting is also a tip in how to advocate.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some really great tips. So anyone else before I go on to the next question? All right. So why do you think that there are so many athletes that are also activists?
I think as an athlete, we have a specific a view on racism that, I mean, racism has always been prevalent in athletics. I mean, we've seen that with the way that people view athletes. I mean, it's always been a kind of prejudice against Black athletes specifically, but other races as well. There's always been a kind of like you don't deserve it maybe. So it's so easy because if you really believe in yourself and in your race in general, it's really easy to want to make change or maybe change people's perception of you and maybe
Yeah, that's actually really great advice. So would anyone else like to answer or add on?
I think that activism and athleticism really go hand in hand because being an athlete and, performing in front of a lot of different people gives you a really large platform. It gives you more people to, when you're protesting in front of like a stadium, that's reaching more people. And if that stadium is being like recorded, then that's reaching even more people. So it's really about the amount of outreach that you're allowed to have. And I think when you see a problem in the world and you realize, well, I have this platform that I can talk about the problem at, and I can reach all of these people and I can really help my people and I can help other people understand why this is a problem. I can help other people understand how do we fix this problem. So yeah, that's why I think it's just really about the platform and about the drive to see the change that you really want to see.
Exactly. Yes. Would anyone else like to answer? All right. So, in one sentence, what would success look like for your cause? Then let's start with you, Jean.
Yeah. I don't know if I could fit it in one sentence. Well, I guess I'll just say that the norm is changed. That would, I guess, if I were to give it one sentence, I would say the norm is changed because for me, the most important thing is that, you know, the things that we see as normal, like God honest truth at this point, it's like it seems that African American men being killed by police is normal. You know, racism is normal. Stuff like that is normal. So when the norm is changed, that's when I feel like, you know, we have succeeded because that we know there's never going to be a day where 100% of the world, 100% of an area, 100% of anywhere is going to be not racist. That's not going to happen. There's going to be people that are still going to have hatred in their hearts. So the most important thing is that making those people the minority, you know, making the people that are racist, making the people that have hatred for anything, for anybody based on gender, religion, sex, and race, all of that, you know, people that feel a certain way about that, when they are the minority and looked down upon, that is when I will feel that this is a success, when the norm is changed.
Great answer. So, how about you, Jasmine?
I would say equal justice and rights for everybody, only because, like Jean said, it's the norm, and I don't think anybody can say, that Black people have the same equal rights or justice as, the next person. So just closing in on that and making sure that, even though it won't happen overnight, that we can push to continue to try to get that to happen. And we're not going to stop until, we're at the point where we're like, okay, we got this justice, we have this, equality for not only just Black people, but, everybody, gender, race, all that. So it's just like, we want everybody to be treated as equals instead of, based on the color of their skin and who they are.
Exactly. That is really important. What about you, Caitlin?
I completely agree with everything that was just said. I also feel like maybe success, maybe in the near future, would be just more collaboration between the youth and older generations, and just more like my youth advisor, Miss Flora. She's great. She's awesome, and she really listens and encourages youth. And I just feel like success might be the youth maybe being able to maybe being supported more, but also the youth can also teach older generations, just like older generations can teach youth. So I feel like that would also be a sort of success.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That was great. And what about you, Cassidy?
It would probably be like we have achieved equity. Everybody gets, what they need when they need it, and everybody is taken care of, and everybody is, learning from each other and growing from each other. Really, I feel like that would be success.
Yes. Well, before we open it up to the Q&A, is there any last words you would like to give? How about we start with you, Jasmine?
I would say, continue to fight for what you guys believe in. I know personally, like this is something that I'm strong about. And, if you're strong about what you feel should be right and you're strong about the need for change, then don't let up, even if, you don't have people by your side at the end of the day, it'll just bring change, equality, justice, change the norms, all that, so I think just doing what you love and continuing to do it for the better.
That's really great. What about you, James?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on this. I was told that I was going to have a lot of pressure on me being the only man. So I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. But if I were to just leave you guys with anything, I would just say that, yeah, a lot like Jasmine said, just continue to fight for everything that you believe in. If there's anybody that, tells you that you shouldn't be fighting for it or that things aren't going to change, just continue to remind them that this wouldn't be the first time that things have had to change. Things have had to change for years, and although change is slow, it does come sooner or later. And the most important thing is being persistent and continuing to fight for it. So thank you guys for having me.
Yes, thank you too for joining us. So what about you, Caitlin?
What I would like to say is I agree with everything they said. And I'd also like to say that if you're advocating and somebody doesn't agree with what you're advocating for or has a problem with what you're saying and you truly believe in it, then you have to stick by it. And it's also not, and this is very specific, but it's not Black people issue if us speaking about our uncomfortability makes other people uncomfortable, which is, I think, something that we all have to learn, that these conversations are supposed to be uncomfortable. So if there's an uncomfortable situation, that means you're having the right conversation. That means you're working towards change. So, yeah.
That's a great point. Thank you. And Cassidy?
I'd probably just say that it's not easy being an activist, and it's not easy, taking these two worlds and putting them together, and it's only really going to get harder. It was never easy. We've been fighting for years upon years, and we're going to be fighting for decades longer. But if we just keep working and we keep putting our best foot forward, then I think that we are going to achieve equality.
Yes, I totally agree. You just always have to work together. Well, thank you all. And now we are going to open it up for the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, please make sure to type them in the Q&A box. Well, I think we, for the most part, have covered it all. But what are some organizations that you guys support with your causes? How about we start with you, Jasmine?
Some organization. I would say it's the task force that we that we are into. I guess an organization, I don't think it's an organization, but we've started doing community work as far as like engaging with the children, the Boys and Girls Club, and, a few others. That's not really like, what you said, but I think it's a step forward into also not just worrying about, police reform and this and that, it's also giving back to the community. and making it aware of that it's not just about that, it's also about our kids and our youth and this and that. So we've also been active in that as well. It's not really an organization, but
Yes. Would anyone else like to answer?
So some organizations that I support and also I'm a part of, the one that I'm a part of is the Delaware Black Student Coalition, which is working for equity and equality in schools and really working towards building up Black leaders, specifically Black student leaders in Delaware. And some other organizations is Teens Drive Change. That's a good organization that I support.
Yes. What about you, James?
Oh yeah, I mean, me and Jasmine are on the same thing, but we really have just been, uh, obviously during the pandemic, it's been kind of hard to really get involved in person. We plan things out for the future, like she said, with the Boys and Girls Club, and like doing different things to stay engaged with the community and stay engaged with the youth. But yeah, we haven't been able to do it in a while because of everything that's going on. But we're hoping to be able to break through and get to more in-person things soon. So
Yes. What about you, Cassidy?
I'm also involved and support the Delaware Black Student Coalition, and obviously I support Teen Drives Change as well as the Kent Youth NAACP. So they all have my full-hearted support.
So my last question before we wrap up is how are you all staying motivated and keeping the ball rolling during COVID-19, and what are some of the restrictions we have?
I guess I think it's like it's not easy continuing to do stuff as far as social justice without being in person and like interacting with these officials. I think our only interaction was with the general attorney, which I think we got a lot out of. And just, as far as our community engagement, interacting with the children, I know we had a lot of success with that in the past as far as the University of Delaware. So, I think that's the only issue here as far as, wanting to be more engaged physically with people. But that's about it for me.
What about you, Kaylin? How are you staying positive and motivated?
So I do a lot of work with my school's BSU, my school's Black Student Union. I like to write up new discussion topics every week for our meetings and just get more people interested. And really, recruiting is basically how I keep myself interested, really just outreach and getting other people interested and just making sure like scheduling and making sure I'm always constantly or consistently on top of what I'm doing, on top of what I'm advocating for.
Yeah, that's a really great way to stay motivated. What about you, James?
personally, I try to just really just stay attentive to everything that's going on. I think that's the biggest motivation that you can have is like making sure it's something that you want to do, and this is something that I'm passionate about. So like, just really paying attention to everything that's been going on around the country, and continuing to address our group, me and Jasmine's group, and like just staying focused on the end goal, because like there's definitely times where it's difficult, like especially with our schedules. It's like we have so much to do every single day. Sometimes there are meetings that we can't even attend, sometimes. So just really trying to remember that it's all going to be worth it one day. Like it may get difficult sometimes. It may get, tedious, sitting there saying, well, we've been sitting here fighting, trying to figure out different things, different ways to get our desired results. So just paying attention to everything that's going on and hoping for the best, and really just trying to keep your head on with everything that's going on, and So I just feel like that's really the most important thing, because you know we're not going to change the world overnight. It's going to take time. So we just have to keep fighting and wanting to do it, and that's going to get us where we want to be.
Totally agree. Would anyone else like to answer?
I just stay motivated because, you know, I have friends around me who help push me, as well as social media does help me stay motivated because, you know, when you're being reminded of, you know, social injustices every day, then that really just starts to, you know, become more so like kind of like your life, like advocating and fighting for social justices. And also, I feel as though protesting during the summer definitely did help me with some momentum, like protesting with my youth group and all that. So, yeah, so basically just protesting, social media, and friends really helped me stay motivated.
Yes, I totally agree. And so we actually do have some questions inside the Q&A. So for one, for our college students, what are you hearing about student loan debt? How about we start with you, Jean?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm on scholarship, so I really don't know too much. I was being honest with you guys. I really don't know too much about like the student loan debt and all that, so I can't really answer to. I can't speak on something I don't know about.
Anyone like to answer? All right, well, we have another question inside the Q&A. I heard you talk about having teammates and friends from all races. Do you talk with them and feel like the parents or adults don't have the same ideas as you?
Yeah, I guess I can.
Go ahead.
I mean, I feel like personally, I haven't felt that way. I feel like they obviously. I feel like, especially with my friends that aren't African American, they've really kind of, although they've given like ideas and stuff like that, as far as like things that we want to do as a group. I feel like as far as when we're talking specifically about like Black Lives Matter and things like that, they're more quiet, not because of the fact that, you know, they don't care, but more so the fact that they're genuinely, like I said, one of my closest friends is on part of it, and they're genuinely trying to listen and understand. So it's more so of them, like, you know, paying attention and wanting to hear what we have to say as African Americans, because it's something that they don't understand, because it's not something they go through every day. So I feel like they have been very important to, and to me personally, they have been the most important part of my fight, because of the fact that I see them caring so much, and they always say that, you know, oppression will never end until those who are not directly affected are just as mad as those who are oppressed. So like that's something that, you know, has really stuck with me throughout this whole entire fight. So I feel like that it's going pretty well as far as things that I have seen personally.
Yeah, and I think that is a very great message. Would anyone else like to answer?
Yeah, I can follow up with that because, you know, personally for us, as far as my team, um, with everybody coming together, I think a lot of the people who aren't African American are willing to learn. You know, just like Jean said, they're not always going to speak up about it, but they really take the time to learn and research and go through, you know, things that they have no idea what's going on about. And then they're like asking questions, and, you know, it feels good to, you know, clarify or tell them, you know, ways they can help or ways, you know, they can participate in these social injustice reforms and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely good that, you know, we have our teammates that are behind us on this, and also our coaches who are like 10 toes down for everything that we do, and like our AD and this and the third. So I think everybody is like on the same page and, you know, wanting to fight the same change.
Yes. Would anyone else like to answer?
I'll answer. I feel like that's the difference between talking to high school students and talking to college students, because there's a real difference of education. A lot of my, teammates who are not a person of color really are just uneducated about the lifestyle of a person of color and don't want to be educated. They get offended very easily, very quickly when you point out that they do have privilege and that they don't advocate for you, and that they're not, you know, seen the same way as you are. When it's a Black person who's winning in a sport, some people might say, well, yeah, Black people have a natural predilection to athleticism. But when it's a white person, it's, oh, wow, they're really athletic. They must have worked very, very hard. And some people don't want to hear that. They don't want to listen to that. And they just want to say, no, we're worth the same. I don't see color. Well, if you don't see color, then you don't see the pattern. You don't see the problem that other people see with my color. And I think that's the real difference between high school students and college students. And
anyone else like that? Caitlin?
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you're in a which most people are, but like if you're in a predominantly Black sport, and like and then you go to a place that's like a predominantly white school, and like you see a lot of different treatment of the Black athletes and the white athletes. I don't know if this is for everybody, college and high school, but I know in high school, like we get a lot of racist, just bad treatment a lot of the times in different districts and just the places that we go. So a lot of white people on our team, or like a lot, but most of the white people on our team don't see that, or they don't see it as racism, but it genuinely makes a lot of their teammates uncomfortable. But because they don't really care, or don't really care to know, or don't really care to ask questions or listen when we're expressing ourselves, they just choose to remain blind to it.
Yes, I totally agree with you all. It's like really important to have people that are there to motivate you, and it's really important to show other people how important certain causes are. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today. This was a very inspiring panel. And thank you also the NAACP for having me. And that's all. Thank you again.
Thank you, panelists, for that dynamic discussion. It is very clear after all of that our future is bright with young people like you all standing up for what's right and using, I'd say, the most unconventional means of activism, such as your athletic statuses, to help fight for the cause of equal rights and justice for all people. So thank you again for participating on the panel today. To everyone else, on behalf of the Convention Program Planning Committee and the leadership of the Delaware State Conference of Branches, I'd like to thank all of our participants and attendees. A lot of power has filled these past 3 hours, and I don't know about all of you, but I'm geared up and I'm ready to get into some good necessary trouble, advancing the securement of civil and human rights for all people. So at this time, Reverend Page is going to render our closing prayer, followed by a final musical performance that you do not want to miss. So I'd ask that you all stay on to watch that. Thank you all again for your service contributions to this prestigious organization. And let's all remember to just keep on keeping on, to stay safe and stay healthy. God bless.
God, we thank you for all we've heard and learned today. As others fought and died to set us free, let us continue living, dedicating our lives, fighting to set the oppressed and destitute free, unmuting ourselves, opening our mouths, speaking for those who can't speak for themselves, speaking up and judging fairly, defending the rights of the poor and the needy. For some of the women, such as Jarena Lee, Dorothy Height, Vashti McKenzie, Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, Shirley Chisholm, Dr. Wilma Michoud, Reba Hollingsworth, and Kamala Harris. We thank you for paving the way for women today. Lord, as we close this convention, asking you to bless us, keep us, use us, and empower us to help empower other women as we do justly, love mercifully, and walk humbly with our God is our prayer. Amen.
Way-oh, 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 I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Way-oh, weight on my shoulders, pulling in my gun. Well, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. Do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's why I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on, I can feel it in my bones. And I know what's around the bend might be hard to face, 'cause I'm alone. And I just might fail, but Lord knows I tried. Sure as stars fill up the sky, stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. You hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on, I can feel it in my bones.